Good evening. Well, first of all, it was a bit of an irony for someone who had never had a sweet tooth at the age of 5 wanted to become a pastry chef. But I was already up for a challenge, and even as a kid, I never chose the simplest recipe. I always wanted to make the most complicated one, the one who needed the rare ingredients or a lot of equipment we didn't have at home. So I was being known halfway through the recipe to cycle to town to try to get the missing ingredients. And of course, the results were not that great, and my poor parents have to suffer for many years having terrible cakes. But at the same time, you know how parents are, they always encourage you and they say, they are the best cakes, you know, much better than the one in a shop. So I thought, oh, I can do a business out of that. I was 6 at the time, so here we go. Table on the pavement on the front of the house, and I started taking orders from neighbors and friends of the family. And I did quite well, actually, till my mum started to charge me for the ingredients as well. So that didn't go too well. At the age of 10, I already picked the patisserie where I was going to do my apprenticeship. And again, I dragged my poor mother inside the patisserie, and I said, speak to the man. I want to do it there. And it did happen. 10 years later, 8 years later, sorry, at the age of 18, I did an apprenticeship at that particular patisserie. I knew the day I passed the door, I was right. This is what I was supposed to do. I loved it straight away, and I knew I was going to be good, and I knew I was actually on the way to success straight away. And I won awards after awards, best local apprentice, and I came second on the national scale for Best Apprentice of France, giving me a massive opportunity when I did my national service to actually cook or at the Élysée Palace or to go on a flagship of the French Navy. As a pastry chef, that's the kind of army we do in France. But already at that time, I knew what my pastry shop would look like. I already knew I wanted to have a cookery school. I knew it wasn't going to be like a chic patisserie. It was going to be nice and glamorous, and it was already in my head. It took me 20 years to make it happen, but it did happen 3 years ago. I traveled a bit, and I came to the UK to work for the famous Roux brothers, Albert and Michel Roux, who were, all have to admit, the first celebrity chef in this country, and with plenty of chef training for them, like Marco Pierre White and Gordon Ramsay. It was supposed to be for 1 year. I was dying to travel to Asia or to America. I had my travel during my national service. I wanted to do more. 1 year happened to be 5 years. They put me as the head pastry chef, and I've become one of the Roux boys, like you're called in the business. And even today, I still looked after them. Albert Roux is a regular in the shop. The Gavroche still order cake from us. They wrote the first preface of my first book. And I learned, obviously, over the years. In '95, I had the opportunity to start the business, seeing it was a demand for high-class patisserie in London. I mean, it was no patisserie, really, in London. So we started a wholesale business supplying cakes to big department stores. Our first client was Ford & Mason, who still was a client with us for 12 years. They actually closed their main kitchen for us after 5 years and gave us the whole bulk of a patisserie business for the retail and the restaurant as well. So, of course, over the years, I learned. I lost my cockiness and my, overconfidence, and instead I started to learn and listen as well to other people. And I wish today I had the facilities I just visited earlier, because actually, in '95 and over the first 10 years, I learned the hard way how to run a business with not too much help Overnight success don't happen or happen very rarely, and I think it's just a matter of luck. Only few people just click the finger and it happened, and that I think is just a huge luck for them. So you will have to work hard. Doesn't matter what you're going to plan to do and how much money you got to do at it as well. Our success is because we stuck to quality right through the last 15 years. We never compromised. We had people coming in and say, can you make cheaper pastry to supply airline? Can you make cheaper pastry to supply the supermarket? And I always say no. I stuck to my belief, and I just say, I want to use the best ingredients, and I want to be the best at what I do. And that's why today we are rewarded with it. And that's why I got TV shows, and that's why I write books, because people related to this and believe. That's my credibility, because we do quality, and we never compromise on whatever we do. Of course, I'm a great believer that nothing ever happened if you keep your finance tight. I learned about that as well. I was very lucky that I only had one investor with following me right through those last 15 years. But tight finance, paying the tax right on time, look after your supplier as well. Last year, I was heartbroken to see how many of my suppliers for the first time went bust because all the other customers didn't pay their bill. And I learned that when I was with the Roux brothers, always looked after your supplier. And of course, without your staff, you're nothing. So look after them, motivate them, and if you can, invest in them by training or other stuff if you can as well. So at the moment, I'm 42. I'm in a happy place in my life, I have to say. I got a gorgeous shop, it's called Cake Boy, where I teach people. New book coming out in September, a new 20-part TV series with Channel 4, so it's all very exciting. And last week we just announced when we just done an association, we've gone in business with Patrick Cox, the famous shoe and handbag designer, to open a chain of cupcakes and cookies in London and in Japan. So that's our next exciting project. You're probably going to read all about it in the next few weeks. But one thing I haven't changed in the last 22 years, at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, I will be in my kitchen. And that's where I'm the happiest, because that's what I love doing.
Thank you very much, Eric. Great stuff. Gosh, 5.5, 6 minutes, a whole career summarised. Brilliant. I mean, there's some great things there already about serving your apprenticeship, which clearly shines through the way that you speak about your early influences and about never compromising on quality, which I suspect is something that we'll hear again. Also looking after your suppliers, which might be something that others want to ask about. Before I ask Jennifer to come up, I just wanted you glided over the fact that your first client, we got Fortnum & Mason as our first client, and taking up the point about the first turn of the wheel there. How did that come about? How do you land Fortnum & Mason as your first client?
Well, the business in '95 was the business in '95 was a one-man show. It was just me in a tiny little kitchen in Battersea. With a tiny little van. Everything was very small. And I just went and knocked at the door at everybody. So I just rang the food buyer at... I had all the connection with the Roux, with the suppliers. So the suppliers were telling me, I asked them and I rang them and I just said, okay, I'm starting the business. And I say, who do you think need a serious makeover? And Fortnum was one of the main names will keep coming up. So I rang them and I said... I asked to have an appointment with the bakery buyer. And I learned something, they always said to you, send some samples. And I said, I don't send samples. You have to come to see the kitchen and I can talk to you about it, because samples end up in a bin, someone drink it, and you got someone who don't like it or don't, because it's not their taste or something, and it doesn't happen. So I wanted to talk to them about it. So I bring them on and I show them around. And they said, we got 15 pastry chefs in-house. So I want to buy your product because it's so new for London, but it's going to be hardly anything. And I say, okay, that's fine. So I used to drive there, honestly, with 2 fruit tarts a day. It was cost-effective, none at all. My business partner at that time was working in the city, and when we started to pick up, to get busy, he started to do a delivery before going to the city. So he was in a suit. And I got a phone call from the managing director of Fortnum & Mason, and that was the old Fortnum & Mason run by the family, and it was all very old-fashioned and proper. He rang and he said, are we looking after you? Are we paying your bill on time? And I have to say, your delivery driver is so smart. But at the same time, on the other side, he used to have to explain at the bank why it was covered with icing sugar or glaze.
Great story.
But the relationship grew, and till one day we had a phone call and they said, we need to see you after closing time. And they have to make a decision. The kitchen was too old. They were losing a huge amount of money. And it was all a bit old-fashioned, unfortunately. So they passed it on to us and they closed the place.
Great story. Thank you very much, Eric.